speak with former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee. I asked him where he stands on this debate.
Well, it's one of the major things that I am so very committed to trying to see happen in America. I use it as a major campaign platform in the 2008 presidential election. I fell into it quite accidentally. People kept coming up to me in Iowa and saying, do you support the fair tax? And I said, well, I think all taxes ought to be fair. No, I'm talking about the fair tax. Eventually, some guy hands me the fair tax book by Congressman John Linder and Neil Bortz. I read it. I said, this makes too much sense. I read it a second time. Then I met with many of the economists who actually built it. This was built on more than $22 million of research using the top economists in the country from the highest level academic institutions to find what would be the best way to assess taxation. Essentially, the nutshell is this. You don't penalize productivity and you don't subsidize reckless irresponsibility, because instead of taxing one's income and one's work and one's productivity and investments and savings, all the things that make for a good economy, you only pay tax at the point of consumption. So it becomes a sales tax rather than a productivity tax.
Mike, and we've been doing segments on this for the good part of the last 3 weeks or so, almost every day, and people say, the naysayers say, yeah, but what about the lower income, that lower end of the income spectrum? How are those people treated? Well, is it regressive?
No, it is not regressive for this reason. One of the provisions of the fair tax is that there is a prebate. A prebate means that every person is essentially untaxed for their basic necessities, because the prebate is a check that goes to everybody. It doesn't matter if it's Warren Buffett or the poorest person in town. Essentially says that we understand there are certain necessities of groceries and medical care. We're going to base this on the table of take the federal poverty level. You create a table by which that's based. So here's the deal.
Somewhere near that, somewhere below the poverty level, or
well, everybody gets the prebate, but the amount is based on the federal poverty level. Now here's what it effectively does. If you are in the bottom third of the economy, you actually see your income improve about 14%. If you are in the middle, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 or 7%. If you are at the top levels, you still come out better, but it's only 4 or 5%. So here's the point. Everybody does better. The people who do the most or the best out of it are the people in the lower income brackets.
Will we create a black market for goods then? Will people try and avoid sales tax by pay cash? You don't have to pay the fair tax.
Well, that's one of the arguments, but here's why it's not really that accurate. If two people engaged in an attempt, it's not just a tax evasion, it's a conspiracy. Are you going to risk yourself going to prison and paying huge fines so that you can get $5 off something you buy? It really does create where both parties now, not one, but two parties have to engage. I'll tell you another thing. What the fair tax does, it means that all the prostitutes, the pimps, the drug dealers, the illegals are going to pay sales taxes. Guess what? They're not filing income tax forms and saying, by the way, here's how much money I made selling dope last year. Here's how much money I made turning tricks last year. So everybody becomes a taxpayer. We no longer have this underground economy, because people who may be turning tricks or selling drugs, they're still buying things. They would pay tax at the point of consumption.
Tell me a little bit. We talked a little bit about it last night. I didn't really understand how this would happen, how this would work. If government wanted to, and they love to, increase spending, this is supposed to be revenue neutral, right? What happens? How do you increase spending as a government if you're not sure? You know exactly what the taxes coming in are going to be X. How do you increase spending? Do you raise taxes?
Well, here's the thing. You don't know what taxes are going to be on based on income and investments and savings, because if the interest rates go down, then all the investment income goes down. If people don't make money, then the income tax goes down. So that's a fallacious argument on the part of the opponent.
My point is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, the fair tax people or the fair tax proposal is 23%. Is that right?
It would be 23%. You're saying how
would you adjust that rate given accordingly in the amount of spending that the government wants?
Well, you don't need to. And one of the reasons that the fair tax is very efficient and effective is because it's transparent. Most people have no idea how much money they pay in taxes. In fact, most people don't know that everything they buy already has 22% embedded tax. So if you buy a pair of shoes, you didn't just buy a pair of shoes, you also paid all the taxes that were assessed for the employers and the manufacturers and everybody who built that pair of shoes and got it to the marketplace. Wouldn't it be great if there were no hidden taxes? And I'll tell you what that means. We now can rebuild manufacturing in America. If a product is made in China, let's say a table, and it's made there are no taxes assessed because it's going to be exported. If you make that same table in North Carolina, there's 22% embedded tax. You put both of them on the showroom floor. Guess which one costs less? What if you took the tax out of that North Carolina produced table? Now you have real competition, and Americans go back to work.
Can we really get rid of the IRS?
We've got to get rid of the IRS.
Will that do it?
Repeal the 16th Amendment. Oh, yeah, there's no point of the IRS. There's 67,000 pages of tax forms that nobody understands, including the Treasury Secretary. Here's what the fair tax does. You don't file tax returns. We eliminate the IRS. You no longer have the government considering you guilty until proven innocent. April 15th becomes just another beautiful spring day in America.
Mike Huckabee, we appreciate your time. Hope we cleared up a lot of the questions of the viewers. Also, if you have an opinion, if you don't agree with